Welcome, my friend. Get comfy and sit, for this story's abound with dread, I admit. We have a young woman, Sachi's her name. She could not have known, so do not cast blame. It all began well, not so long ago, when Sachi still lived in her dear Kyoto. The year 96, or perhaps 95. School life was good, Sachi felt so alive. Friday had come, the day almost through. On her way back to class, she met Masaru. He was quiet and cold, an odd sort of boy. His eyes were just blank and devoid of all joy. He stood perfectly still and stared at her face. Sachi just froze. Her heart started to race. "Hello," she said, hiding her grief. Then Masaru smiled. He was missing some teeth. Shocked and in fright, Sachi started to leave, to just move away and gain some reprieve. As she slowly escaped, she could feel his stare, but turning to look, he was no longer there. Preceding the day, he fell from her mind. There was so much to do, her workload unkind. A project was due, so she'd have to stay late. She always worked hard, a terrible trait. Hours then passed since the ring of the bell. The sun disappeared and darkness had fell. With a yawn and a stretch, it was time to head home, so she packed up her stuff and the halls she did roam. Sachi wandered her way and hummed a new song, when deep in her gut she felt something was wrong. She walked to the window, now growing in fright. She looked out through the glass and into the night. From where she was stood, on the school's higher floor, she saw a figure downstairs walk in through the door. Sachi shot back, not sure what to do. It was then at that point she recalled Masaru. For a moment she froze. It just couldn't be. She thought to herself, did he wait here for me? Calming herself and clearing her head, she'd find a new exit and leave there instead. So she then turned around and walked at a pace. She tried to keep quiet, it was all just in case. As she got to the stairs, Sachi did stir. There were footsteps approaching and coming to her. Thinking the worst, she ran for the loo and waited to see who came into view. Sat still and waiting, the steps drawing near, the figure appeared and gripped her in fear. There stood a man, or a woman perhaps, a being so dire it makes courage collapse. Tall, slim and robed, sleeves draped down its thighs, and an old matted mask that covered its eyes. Its mouth could be seen, so pale and thin, then it raised up its head and formed a mad grin. Turning its head, it scanned left and right. Sachi was frozen for fear of its sight. It took a sharp turn and a few steps away, which gave Sachi hope she would not have to stay. That hope was short-lived, and the prospect to flee, when a voice then called out with a playful, "Sachi." This stabbed at her heart with great fearful pains. Her blood then ran cold and froze in her veins. It was looking for her and checking each room. If it came back around, this would be certain doom. It opened a door and entered the class. Now was the time for her to haul ass. She then stepped outside, a cold sweat on her cheek. As she got to the stairs, she heard a low squeak. The door to the ladies had sounded its closure. Sachi did what she could to retain her composure. Not hearing a thing, she made her way down. She'd find the first exit and flee into town. Halfway down the stairs, where the floor became level, there came a small laugh, a sinister revel. Sachi looked up, and that's where it stood, smiling a smile no sane person should. She then tried to run, to break from the fray, but the being had jumped and was now in her way. Through the great shock and the whole evening scares, she shoved at the figure, and it fell down the stairs. A great many thuds then came to a stop, as the person lay still, and a silence did drop. Sachi stepped down in a mournful regret. She'd acted in fear against a possible threat. She feared that perhaps it had all been a joke, now taken too far with one single stroke. She stared at the person and could now barely stand, but felt a cold chill when a twitch moved their hand. Sachi then backed away from the thing on the floor. Then its neck snapped towards her and laughed with a roar. The laugh carried out and bounced off the walls. Sachi then ran to escape down the halls. She took several turns, but could hear it approaching. She decided to hide from the danger encroaching. She ducked in a closet and did not make a sound, standing perfectly still, hoping not to be found. A rapid succession of footsteps was heard. They ran past the closet as if undeterred. Some moments then passed, which felt like forever. Sachi opened the door. It was now or never. As she stood in the hall, there was no one about. She then took a step, and the lights just went out. As fast as she could, she covered her scream. Sachi just couldn't wake from this terrible dream. Silent and slow, she continued her path. From deep in the school, there echoed that laugh. She spun right around, but was still stepping back, listening close, so just to keep track. Set on her course, hands clenched in her lap, she stopped on the spot when she heard a light tap. Unable to move, while stricken with dread, all Sachi could do was to just turn her head. Outside the window, in awful surprise, was a tall silhouette with two gleaming eyes. Just as with the other, it's a sight to abhor, except with this one, a veil covered its jaw. An uncovered face, save for its long hair, Sachi just couldn't break from its harrowing stare. It punched at the glass, which snapped her awake. The window did crack. "Just run, for God's sake!" She sprinted away as it clambered inside. It laughed something cruel with a predator's pride. "Run, little girl," the monster had said. "Enjoy every second before you are dead." The words cut her deep as she continued to run. If these creatures caught up, she'd surely be done. She ran on, taking turn after turn. Her breath became dry and her muscles did burn. The laughter and calls of the two sounded out. It took all she could not to scream, yell, or shout. It was all just too much, and it looked like the end, until Sachi took that one final bend. There was the exit. She was almost in tears, to flee from this place and all of its fears. Closer and closer, feet pounding the floor, she outstretched her hand and pulled at the door. With a pull and a heave, the door opened wide. Freedom was there from the creatures inside. Our girl got away. There's no need to cry. I could tell you that, but it would be a lie. Good day, I'm Jar19 and thank you for listening. So this is a new thing I'm trying out for my creepypastas, writing them in verse, that is. I had so much fun writing Wandering Will, even though that was originally just going to be a holiday special scenario, that I figured I would give this structure a go for a while. What did you think of Bright and Sweet? Hopefully, if I did my job right, then they kept you on the edge of your seat. Thanks for sticking around till the end and listening to me ramble. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, then perhaps subscribe, leave a like, and if you're feeling particularly cheeky, maybe even a comment. I do hope that you'll join me again. Stay safe, sleep well, but remember, here we make monsters.